GM, everyone. Welcome to Helium Builders Bootcamp. We are about to get started. If everybody can find their seats, encourage people to come sit in the front row, front, first, second. There are some caps on the table. Feel free to grab those. And if you didn't get one, no worries. We have some more merch there. So come find any of the team members for more merch. We are live on Twitter. So if any of your friends who couldn't make it out here tonight, let them know to watch the live stream. Wanted to quickly introduce myself, SF Builders Bootcamp event. Hi, my name is Aarti. Really nice to see some familiar faces, some new ones, make some new friends today. We are doing some hotspot giveaways today, the ones on the right, and that will be at the end of this presentation session that we are going to get started in like about 5 minutes. But I just wanted to quickly shout out to George over here from House of Web3. Um, you know, thanks for having the Helium community over at the space. George is one of the early Helium community members. The reason we are having the event today is because there is a Helium hotspot deployed at House of Web3. So I encourage, oh, it's right here behind. So everyone, please go to your settings, open Wi-Fi, find Helium, get connected, post that you are here. We would love to see a lot of social content. So thank you, George, for having us. And I'm going to pass this to Mario, head of network.
Hello, everybody. I've been told to stay exactly in this spot. So, hello, everybody. My name is Mario Didio. I'm the General Manager of Network at Helium. And if you can guess from my accent, I'm from Italy. And as I usually say on all my talks, if you can't understand what I'm saying, just look at my hands. Everything will be crystal clear. I'll do my best to try to stay where I've been told to stay. So, but first of all, lots to be thankful. We just went through Thanksgiving and holiday. I want to say that thank you, first of all, to you for being here tonight, and thank you to the Web3 for hosting it. But thank you also to our fantastic marketing team here at Helium that pulled this off. So if I can have a round of applause for them, Frank, Emily, RT, everybody involved. But really, what's behind this is we wanted to get together with the deployer community. There's a lot of common, faces that we know, that we've seen before. They've been in the Helium ecosystem for a long time. There is some new faces, and hopefully we'll see more and more of new coming. But the idea behind the bootcamp is really, while this is gonna be the kickoff of a series, is trying to get our hands dirty in how this network has been built, and how we can do, what are the tools that are available, and get that feedback from you, especially from people that are in the trenches. So what we're going to do today is just a quick 101 on Helium, just for the new people that are in the room to understand what is it, what are we trying to accomplish. I'll try to be as brief as possible. And then I'm going to pass the mic to Joey to talk about the tools that are available for building the network, and then to Jeremy to talk about how one of the deployers in the room, how the network has been pitched, what is the success stories, and tools for that. And then we're gonna, Sam is gonna wrap it up, telling what is our plan with these boot camps. Look, the mission is simple, and that's how it's supposed to be, but hard at the same time, which is revolutionize how we connect. So when we talk about telecommunication network, if I say the word telecommunication, you say the word connectivity, it sounds like a very, very complex thing that historically is being performed by, has been delegated, I should say, to big companies. The big telcos that we're all very aware of, we're very familiar with. Those are the ones that over the years have been the one that build the networks. Well, the idea behind Helium, which is, here we have tonight with our founder, CEO, Amir, Alhim, and the rest of the team that started this many years ago, was what if the model can be changed? What if the model comes into a way in which the power of building the networks, instead of being in the hands of few, it will be in the hands of many. And that's really what's behind the Helium model. What does it actually mean? Um, there are two major parts when you think about a network connectivity. One is the infrastructure side, and the other one is whoever is the uses that service that infrastructure builds and creates. If I tell you cellular network, you probably your mind immediately goes to big towers and big expensive sites and these tall buildings. You know, if you just actually if you exit from here, you just look on the left. Just there's a couple of towers right behind this building. Those are the type of stereotypes in a way that we are very accustomed to think when we think about networks. And the idea behind Helium is, can I change that model from a very centralized model in which there is few of those and it's very expensive to both for installation as well, you know, initial capital involved as well as operations, into something which is more manageable, it's more distributed. In other words, it can be shared, where that pie of the infrastructure can be shared. And the answer is yes. And I'm not going to dwell too much in the history of Helium and how we started with IoT, but if we just laser focus on what we're doing today with our mobile efforts, this is the incarnation of that decentralization, or the incarnation of that multiplicity of ownership of the network, goes through this device that is called the Helium Mobile Hotspot. What the Helium Mobile Hotspot is, in a very marketing way of thinking about it, is like a mini cell tower. Essentially, is a way for people to get connected, to get to the internet, you know, in a way that is much more portable, is much more affordable, is much more easy to deploy. So now we go from big infrastructure to something that it's a multiplicity of these devices that can be installed by anyone, anywhere. And when we say anywhere specifically, we are referring to places where people congregate. It's like, this is a perfect place. Like Artie said, there is a hotspot deployed at this place. We're talking about coffee shop, restaurants, shopping malls, and the casino floors, and hotels, and all the places where people congregate. All of those places are perfect examples of targets that can be utilized, that can be targeted to install a Helium mobile hotspot. Or alternatively, to convert existing Wi-Fi deployments into Helium. Again, today we're going to focus mostly on the Helium mobile hotspot, but there is an alternatives way as well to build the network. So remember, two sides. First side, how we build the network, and how the decentralization of the infrastructure, or I should say, how Helium is trying to break up that model into a multiplicity of installation. The second model is the service that run on top, because thanks to when you build a network in this way, you have the ability to create services that run on top. They are much more appealing and they are much more disruptive in the space. So if you're not heard, Helium has a mobile operator as well called Helium Mobile, and we are the only carrier essentially in the US that is able to offer a free plan. And when we say a free plan, is essentially the ability to literally have free phone plan that you can have access to, and you can utilize as a user. So why is able to do that? Why we're able to do that is because of the network that is behind, that is powering this, and that is disrupting the way that model has been built for the past, I don't know, 60, 70 years. If you put together also the old legacy telco stuff. So two sides of the equation. And on top of that, what we're seeing, which is very encouraging, is that while the network is being created to serve Helium mobile subscribers, we also see traditional telcos started to dip their toes into this model. So now today, the network on top of Helium mobile subscribers is able to, we call it offload. What does it mean is really is able to connect subscribers from other telco carriers. What does it mean practically? If any of you in the room here have an AT&T or a T-Mobile service, what you can see if you pull out your phone right now, you'll see that you are connected to the hotspot. What does this mean? It means that your carrier, first of all, you should go on Helium Mobile. But second of all, if you're not on Helium Mobile, your carrier has agreements with Helium to bring their subscribers into the network, for the network to serve their subscribers into in using the hotspot. And while doing so, whoever is the deployer of the hotspot is rewarded by the Helium blockchain in HNT, in Helium network tokens. So now you see that is this interesting flywheel in which the network gets created, carriers are coming on board, and thanks to that, we're able to scale the network efforts and help this flywheel that goes both infrastructure and service plan. What we are today is that the network today is 120,000 mobile hotspots in the US, and we just recently crossed the 2 million mark for daily active users. So what does it mean, daily active users? Those are users from all the carriers that the network supports that connect to the network on a given day. So the only way in this works is without requiring any action to the user. All of you, whoever is connected here, no matter if you have an Helium mobile plan or an AT&T plan or a T-Mobile plan, you didn't have to do nothing. The moment you walk out the door, automatically, just like a cell tower, hence the word meaning cell tower, you are automatically connected to the network. And that's how we were able to get those 2 million daily active users. And the only reason why we were able to get those 2 million active users is because of the deployers. Because of deployers like you in the room and others, that they are spending their effort and they're spending their time, and we're very thankful for, into believing into this project and in believing this different way of building networking infrastructure. So as I said, I was promised to be brief, but I wanted to pass it on to our director of product at Network, which is Joey Hiller, and which we will dig a little bit more in by what kind of tools are available for builders to build the network.
Before Joey gets in, I just wanted to quickly mention that please engage with the speakers, ask them questions, because at the end, the giveaway winners will be selected on how engaged you were with the speakers and
I know Jeremy's going to heckle me now.
And that's why I conveniently leave the stage. I'm joking. Like, if there are any questions, please feel free to stop.
Please.
He has a phone with questions. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh, if you are not automatically connecting.
Yeah, so it depends. May I ask you, what is your carrier?
On this device, my carrier is Verizon.
Exactly. So notice the two names that I mentioned at the beginning and the name that I did not mention. That means that, like we said, it's a good clarification. As you can see, the reason why he's not able to connect is because right now that specific carrier is not supported by the network at this moment.
It's the dark side.
Well, they come to the bright side eventually anyway.
There's some encouraging.
They'll do.
So, yeah.
But thank you for the clarification. Any other question? Oh, wow, great.
You're saying this hotspot just hosts a Wi-Fi network that my phone joins automatically. I don't have to know the username or password because I am a T-Mobile subscriber.
So the question is, this Wi-Fi network is able to authenticate a user without username and password. So without getting into much of the technical details, but essentially all of us carry with us a way to authenticate into the network. In the case of T-Mobile or AT&T and other carriers, is a SIM card. So when you walk inside a room that has a Helium mobile hotspot, the SIM card automatically recognizes that there is a network which is compatible, and it will use those credentials to authenticate. We pass that authentication over to your carrier, and that authentication flow will be completed by the carrier. Once that is complete, then you have connection to the Wi-Fi automatically, so you don't have to do anything. But good question, thank you.
Yeah. So some time ago, a friend turned me on to Helium. I was unaware of it at the time, and I had just renewed my phone service. And he said, oh, you can get free phone service. And I looked into it, and it looked like you had to set up some sort of a hotspot in your home, and that became a shared resource amongst the network. Is that correct, how that works?
So
Everyone who has it puts this thing in their home, and you allow others to use your network? Is that how it worked?
yes or no, I'll try to get into that. So essentially, but this is a good feedback for our own messaging as always. So the Helium mobile phone plan is a plan that works regardless of having a network devices in your home. So that's like it's a phone plan that you buy the same way you would buy a phone plan from AT&T, for T-Mobile, for Verizon, for any of the carriers. So you can get a free phone plan. There is also $15 option. There's a $30 option with different type of data allowances there. But essentially, it works just like any other phone plan. On top of a normal phone plan, when you are close by to one of these hotspots that has been configured to essentially give data to that user, you will automatically connect, just like it happened tonight in here. Now, if you happen to have one of those devices at your home, you will connect it. In general, our view of that is that we do see hotspots to be more useful into places when there is congregation, because you're likely at home, you already have your own Wi-Fi. So you really don't need a specific hotspot. But in general, the phone plan is something that subsists on itself. However, it has the plus compared to any other phone plan that on top of your regular service, you can also get connected to any of the hotspots when you're close by. So in a way, actually, you have more connectivity than a regular phone plan.
So there was a few things. At the time, it was they had offered a free plan, and personally, I did find the messaging confusing. And now I'm still getting, because I had signed up, I get a lot of emails. I just got some email where they're offering a pie or something, and it was $15 and $30 plans, and I'm like, that started out, they offered me a free plan, and now they're charging 15 and 30. I was like, did the free model not work out? Now they're becoming more of a traditional, like Red Pocket or like Mint. I think Mint went out, but some of the others that are like MVNOs and they buy from the big carriers, and you're not that, right? You don't buy from the big carriers and then lease and then sell cheaper, like Red Pockets and some of those. So I got confused over putting the thing in my house. I didn't want something intrusive on my home network. So what I think I'm understanding from what you're saying now is that like Xfinity has a ton of hotspots around, and you can use those, but to me they're extremely risky and untrustworthy, and I wouldn't recommend anyone use them because anybody can create an Xfinity SID. A hacker can, right? And their app is horrible, and connecting to it is highly risky because it could be a snooper that creates an Xfinity SIM in an airport or anywhere, and you're connecting to some hacker website. How do you prevent that from your hotspots so that when it's connected, you know it's secure? It's not some hacker creating a website that looks like Helium Mobile.
Also, last question, since we want to be on time, but we have some room at the end also for more questions. I see some hand raises over here, but keep your questions. We just want to be on schedule.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I'll answer really quickly this one. I think it's important. So, so without commenting on others, because that's not our job here, what I can say here is that on the implementation of the hotspot, the discussion that I mentioned before about the authentication. So essentially, there is a very secure way for every phone that is a Helium mobile phone plan to connect to the back end. So, and that will only happen when you have the right set of, let's call it trust of chain of trust in security world. And that will that's the only way for you to connect to the network. That's how you're not able to connect to other network that even if they would snoop, like you said, the network. So there is an authentication layer that will run on top, and that's this one that gets secured into the handshake that happens when you walk into this door. So even if you have another Wi-Fi network that is called Helium, you won't be able to connect to that because it's not connected to our backend in order to close the loop on your authentication. Well, let's just say that in the security model that we was very thought through with this, in what we did with Helium Mobile, and we're very happy and very, very confident in the practices that we use there. So you want a mobile service and the networks that people in the home are providing from Wi-Fi service. We have all your mobile, save that mobile data in your Well, regardless of saving, the idea here is that wherever you have a compatible network that you can connect to, your phone will connect to. And actually, in many cases, you have a better connection with that when you walk in than try to have a connection that comes from the outside. I'm happy to join if you can into this later and get into more
Yeah,
deployment, but
let's.
I want to make sure that it's Wi-Fi. That is correct. The internet. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so Mario gave us a really good primer on what it takes to build Helium. And so we saw this sort of transition from the big macro cell tower. I'm gonna look at my slides down here because it helps me pace things a little bit. I guess I used the clicker too. Um, uh, you know, has anyone in the room not deployed a hotspot yet? Or, yeah. So if I were to ask you, talking about this existing world where you have this big macro tower like the one that's outside and moving to a world a little bit more like this, what would you expect the onboarding to look like? A random guess. Or how involved would it be? Plug it into Ethernet, yeah. That's basically it. So yeah, I'll take that answer. So yeah, I mean, like, how do you build a network of 130, what did we say? 120,000 hotspots, right? A whole bunch of people out there deploying these things. How do you build a network of 1 million hotspots? How do you build a network of 10 million hotspots? Oh, I'm supposed to be on an X, sorry. I like moving. The really important thing here is that it becomes really, really easy for these folks to get in and participate. Like, we wouldn't have gotten to 120,000 hotspots on the network if people had to go and do all these weird configurations and think about AAA servers and all the other stuff that we've sort of handled for you. And so that's what this does, right? So the onboarding experience for a Helium mobile hotspot today is that you plug it into Ethernet, you plug it into power, and you scan a QR code. All of the other fun stuff, it gets handled through what today is a Helium Builder app. It's a really nice interface. You're out on the field. It connects to that access point and sort of handles all that for you and brings it onto the network. That is all going to start to change. And it's going to get even easier, surprisingly. So, oh yeah, please. Yeah, so I'll repeat the question. When you plug one of these things in, is it creating its own SSID separate from your own Wi-Fi network? The answer is yes. So, exactly, and that is a beautiful question. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So it is distinctly its own network. So nobody that's connecting to this is looking at your Apple TV or anything else that's on your network. It is completely segmented out. So it's another one of those things, and Mario was touching on, some of the AAA server and some of this other stuff that we won't go into the technical details on, but is really paramount, right? Making sure that when somebody sets these things up, they're not opening themselves up to the entire world. And it's also important that that user that's connecting to your hotspot is not opening themselves up to you. And so these things are very trusted in sort of both directions, and it's a very tested protocol. It's why AT&T and all these other folks are leveraging it to sort of offset the existing cell tower systems. So going into this, we are bringing a new experience to hotspot onboarding. So as Mario mentioned in the intro, I'm going to talk tools, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what it takes to build with Josh in a second. So speaking on a tools front, the hotspot onboarding experience is going to evolve from simply a mobile app to now implementing in this platform that we call World. And World is the exploration layer for all things Helium. And what you will soon be able to do is jump in and do your onboarding through the web app, or through the web app on your phone, or through the phone itself. There's a whole vector of ways to control this. So it simplifies that experience and makes it so that you don't have to depend on a bunch of other sort of external factors around your phone successfully connecting to that hotspot in order to do that thing in the first place. So it's just going to get easier. It's very beautiful. It's a whole lot of technical stuff behind the scenes that's going to make it that much simpler to get to that million or 10 million users that we're talking about. So the other thing that we're changing is getting rid of seed phrases. So for anyone in this room that's familiar with Web3 or crypto, you've probably experienced a seed phrase or a private key, and it is effectively this nightmare of a way to protect yourself or to rug yourself, as they would say. So if you are signing up for any sort of crypto experience today, typically you're going to write down this seed phrase, which is 24 random words, and nobody can tell you where to store them or how to store them, or they can tell you what happens when you lose them, which is you don't get them back. There is no other party that can go help you recover those things. And that is frankly a nightmare experience, and we've seen folks in the Helium ecosystem, sadly, at various times they lose them. And there's nothing that we can do because we don't control that for them. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about with this new platform is that we are going to work with a partner who can successfully obfuscate all of that layer so that folks can just sign up with an email address and start participating in deploying hotspots on the network. So now that story of I go to my uncle who owns a pizza place and I want to get them involved, but they don't want to think about crypto. They don't want to think about all the other stuff that's involved there. They can get involved and they can participate in the network without having to sort of go through this entire onboarding process that I've seen Solana stores and other places sort of like try to figure out how to teach people about. So that's going to be really exciting. And this comes into another part of this, which is all of your hotspots are going to live in this one home, and we're going to start bringing in some really cool stuff around reward splitting. So if you, in this room, you start to understand what it takes to set up Helium, and you want to tell a friend about it, maybe it's the uncle with the pizza place, you can bring them a hotspot and you say, like, I'll give you half the tokens that it earns. And you can set that up on chain. It's a smart contract. The entire thing is owned and managed on chain, and all of those rewards from that hotspot will get distributed out to both of you. And you can claim them on your own terms. You'll have your own account. They never had to set up a seed phrase. They onboarded just with a QR code that you generated. I did it once with a friend's restaurant, and it was amazing. I showed her the QR code, and without thinking, she scanned it and signed up. And so this starts to build an opportunity where folks can experiment and grow these systems. And it's one of the things that I'm really excited when we get Jeremy up here to talk about a little bit more. QR code onboarding is coming, dare I say, next week. If all things go well, we will see this come out next week. It's going to come to the Builder app first. You will now onboard your hotspot just with the QR code that is on the hotspot itself or on the box. You won't have to do all of the Wi-Fi pairing and things. So for folks that are familiar with onboarding, it's real easy. And all of the other experiences that I'm talking about with the no seed phrases and this new dashboard, they are coming in Q1 of next year. And we'll be iteratively rolling these pieces out so that folks can start to test them and play with them as fast as possible. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jeremy.
One question.
Oh, yeah, please.
Just one quick question. So if I deploy a hotspot, is the traffic encrypted from the subscriber all the way to your network? So the reason why I'm asking is that if I deploy the hotspot
Yep.
and the Helium subscribers start torrenting on their phone, will my ISP see that traffic was already VPN tunnel to your network?
Fortunately, it's very hard to torrent on a phone. I believe that traffic would be observable on an ISP level.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
In the existing Builder app, you have to claim your tokens that get rewarded to you for you have also. When you have the splitting thing, does it reward both of you daily? What's the kind of cadence?
That is a good question. So in order to enable this reward splitting, we built another thing which is basic. I'm going to use the nerdy term. It's an on-chain cron job. And so it's basically going to, on a clock, it's going to go through and run a process. And you can define whatever schedule you want that process to happen at. And it will go and claim those rewards and do that distribution all in one swing. So when that hotspot's rewards get claimed, it just automatically splits out right from there. So no, you don't have to manually claim. He's got the mic, then I'll get you.
Will the distribution be in like HNT or would it be like USD?
It'll be in HNT, and actually this brings up a point that I forgot to mention, is we're excited to start adding off-ramp rails directly to that dashboard. So again, that uncle who's the pizza place guy doesn't want to think about how to move things to Coinbase or whatever, they'll be able to do that directly within that platform. They can understand that token that they have in a dollar equivalent, things like that. So it's going to be a really exciting platform to build and experiment and sort of bring some of those features to make it easier. Yeah, would it be ACH? Yeah, I think probably the move there is going to be like a Plaid type integration and then just, straight into the bank. Yeah.
Okay, so I run an internet provider in West Africa, and we have over 40,000 customers already with their customer premise equipment that already delivers Wi-Fi and has multiple SSIDs. In that scenario, and I have about 160 100-foot towers too. So in that scenario, how would I partner with you guys? Because we already all our customers already have a Wi-Fi router in their premises, right?
Yeah. Jeremy, you're going to talk about this a little bit, aren't you? Brownfield? Okay, I didn't want to steal your thunder. So this is a means to an end, which is to make it really easy for somebody to go set that up. However, it is not the only way to create that coverage. So the cool thing, we call it, internally it's Brownfield. It's a terrible name. We've started calling it Helium Plus as a sort of way to take an existing network. I usually like looking around a room for the access points and figure out if it's one we've written a guide for yet. But all of those are in our documentation, and we have a team. Ollie is on that team. He'd be a guy to talk to about it. And basically, we can take those, add the Helium functionality to that existing hardware, and it'll start to operate just like one of these. And so we've actually done that across major airports. BWI in the US is most recently converted in that way. There's some hotels in Las Vegas, all sorts of cool stuff like that that have done this.
Okay, so who should I talk to?
Guy with the white hat.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, and Nina. Nina's here too, yeah.
On that revenue share platform, are we going to be able to use that and deploy it to all of our different accounts so they can see what they're getting and what their activities are? And then we as a master, that if we have 2,000 locations, but the one individual owns 4, he could see his 4. So we'll be able to differentiate, send that out and have like a master list.
Yeah, so as the hotspot owner, you will see every single hotspot that you own in this dashboard. You might be a bit of an exception at your scale. We're not quite building with you in mind. The core user persona that I've been chasing, at least for this early version, and we might get to what you're doing. Well, I'd love to hear that. But the persona loosely that I'm targeting is the person who has 1 to 10 to 30 hotspots or so. As you start to reach those bigger numbers, it starts to maybe make sense to think about custom software, but we want to learn about those use cases as folks are evolving them. So we can start to iterate on that stuff here. One of the really nice things about working on the web is we can work really quickly. But yeah, to summarize your question, you will see every single one of your hotspots here. That partner that you're working with would see their end of that hotspot that they've involved in without having to sort of see everything else that you're working with. So they get their own view of what you're working with for them. Yeah.
So you said there was going to be a daily automatic claim, yes?
Configurable, but yeah, claim rate.
What is the transaction fees on that?
We have not decided if we are going to cover that or if it's going to be a fee that gets paid up front. So basically, I'm going to get into technical details again, but when you set one of these things up, you fund a little account on chain and you give it a set amount of Solana token, and that gets used to basically turn the crank every period that you decide to have that claim go out. So you pre-fund it. It works for some finite amount of time. You can refund it later. If you want, you can close it. You can claim it. It's pretty flexible. Yeah, although we could make this case that we cover it. So it's one of the really cool things about this authentication method that we're implementing is we can start to cover transaction costs for certain things. Fun little details in there. Question in the back. And then maybe we'll do the last, where's RT? She's usually time copying me. We'll,
Yeah, we have room for last question. And
yeah,
then
we'll do this one last question, then I'll pull Jeremy up here.
On your dashboard, on your controls, is there a way to detect if someone's trying to brute force your hotspot for future?
Brute force your hotspot. That would be challenging. We don't show any of that in the dashboard today. To the extent that we're able to start detecting and displaying that sort of thing, we can. But we are going to show uptime reports and things like that for the hotspot, so you get a really good sense of how a hotspot is performing. Cool. We'll do more questions. I love all of these. It's great. But I want to hand it over to Jeremy. Oops, wrong way. There you are. Cool. Oh.
How's everybody doing? Good. Good to see so many of you coming out tonight. My name's Jeremy Marley. I am the founder and CEO of Proof Wireless. I'm not a Helium Mobile or Nova Labs employee, but they invited me here tonight to talk about building in the space. I'm a builder in the space, and talk about some of the approaches that I take when I am pitching to a small business in my area, and not just individual small businesses, but I pitch. I like to go door to door and talk one-on-one with folks, but I also like to pitch to bigger groups, multiple birds, one stone kind of thing. And so we'll get into all of that in the next few minutes. And feel free to raise your hand at any time with questions here. But I thought I'd start out with a bit of a know your target and you know who we're pitching. We heard about this awesome product and this great service, this great Helium mobile service, but who are we pitching it to? Who do we want to approach and ask to use our service? And who it turns out to be are small businesses that ideally have high footfall, meaning there's a lot of people who go through this small business, and or long dwell times. So people spend a lot of time in this small business when they're there. Ideally both. Typically one of those is good enough, but if you really want to earn on your location, you're going to want both. And here are a couple of those types of businesses. Restaurants, bars, coffee shops are my bread and butter. Retail and shopping centers, shopping malls. Gyms are, I think, some of the highest earners on the network right now. So if you have access to any gym locations, do everything you can to lock up a gym location. Doctor's office waiting rooms, dentist office waiting rooms have been really good on the network. Anybody have any other ideas, any other thoughts on what any deployers have great locations that I've maybe left off of the presentation here? Yeah. Salons, laundromats, food courts. What was the last one? Small businesses inside of airports. Barbershops, yep.
I'll tell you what I think you should be installing hotspots. You should be installing hotspots in some of the larger event venues around town because they bring in hundreds of people. They're always trying to get on Wi-Fi. If you can get it in near Moscone, you got a gold mine. Around this city, it's a very popular city for events like we're having one tonight. And there's a lot of event centers around the Moscone area. I go to a lot of events. The first thing I'm always trying to do is get on Wi-Fi. So I think hotspots out there would be
event
tremendous.
spaces are really great for this kind of product.
Really good, yeah.
Co-working spaces are like the one here. There's events like this at co-working spaces. Anybody else? Any other kinds of places? Any other kinds of venues that I may be forgetting? Yeah. Train station, yeah. And transit stops, bus stops, anywhere, yeah. The same with like an airport. I mean, when you get, or a doctor's office for that matter, think about what you do when you get to those places. You get to your gate at the airport, or you check in at your doctor's office, and you're waiting to get called back. What are you doing? Before you board your plane or before you get called back into the doctor's office, you're sitting in the waiting room on your phone. I was at the airport this morning, sat on my phone for an hour before I boarded my plane. So really, anywhere that people are using their phones are an ideal spot for this. Yeah.
One quick notice, there was just some things on the news that San Francisco's offering complimentary Wi-Fi around Chinatown. And some cities, you know, that are compassionate like San Francisco, and they call it digital equity program. And so maybe underrepresented areas that require more Wi-Fi for people would be a great way to get some hotspots in there and also get some really good positive media attention that these hotspots are going in to traditional areas, maybe underrepresented or poorer communities where there's not a lot of, and there's a huge demand for Wi-Fi, and a lot of these communities don't have easy access to Wi-Fi. Libraries
Yeah.
in those communities and just in general.
You know,
maybe.
that's a great point. Public spaces, libraries, farmers markets, you know, even going beyond that, grocery stores, places like that. So those are the types of places that we're looking for this. Before you start approaching places, I find it a helpful practice to kind of get in the mindset of the person you're approaching. So when you think about like a restaurant bar manager, think about what's going through their head. They're very busy in their jobs already. Their schedules are very tight already. At the same time, they're used to being pitched by people like you and me. They're used to these kinds of sales calls, so they might be a little bit skeptical to begin with because they deal with these calls on a daily basis. But they trust folks like those at the Chamber of Commerce to vet businesses and vet the legitimacy of businesses. So they're like a trusted partner in all of this, which is why chambers of commerce and business associations and other groups have been very fruitful for me when I approach them. But think about what the restaurant manager, what do they care about? That's their reality, is that they're busy and overworked and overwhelmed. But what do they care about? They care about they care about their customers staying longer and spending more money. They don't want headaches with Wi-Fi that doesn't work or giving out the Wi-Fi password. And because they're so busy, they want to keep things simple. They don't want a lot of drama, and they want to keep things simple and easy. You know, I find one of the biggest hurdles for me as I'm talking to a business owner that I've identified as a professional in the space as a place that could benefit from the service, and the business owner just isn't very techy and doesn't get it. So even though I know that this is going to be a great earning venue for me and for the host, they just don't get it. It's not really their wheelhouse. Tech isn't their wheelhouse. So, you know, you just be ready to address those. Getting in their mindset helps you proactively think about those objections that might come up and help you address them ahead of time. Yeah.
Yeah, I've identified very similar needs and concerns. One concern I'm having trouble with in some cases is a lot of these venues have TVs and other things they use to get their entertainment to the customers or something while they're eating. They use the internet as well. And when I come in there and say, hey, I want to install this will help your customers. One concern I'm having a hard time addressing is, will it affect our existing devices, our existing connections? What do I do if this brings down the YouTube TV session while we're watching a baseball or football game? Customers complain. Are there ways to control bandwidth usage? Or I thought about bringing in a crazy IT switch that I control, which is more expense. This is a concern that I've actually had to handle.
Yeah, there is tooling in the hotspot dashboard that allows you to set the bandwidth usage, customize the SSID. I think is still coming. Can't remember if that's live or not. But there are ways to limit the bandwidth usage of the hotspot, either directly or indirectly, like you mentioned, through a third-party device.
Also, I would say we have a couple hundred locations. We've never once had a single complaint, and that's what I tell people when they say that. And it's a very reversible thing. Like if it's ever an issue,
Yeah.
And that's just a very easy objection.
Address it, tell them, yeah, I understand your concern, we've never had a problem. If there is a problem, here's what to do.
Yep. Yep. And honestly, unplugging and plugging back in solves most issues with hotspots. Like if it ever stops working or anything, it's crazy how simple of a fix it is. But that's a very good point. Thank you. Okay, so now you're in the conversation with the restaurant manager. Their YouTube TV is working, so they're in a good mood. But you have to present, why are they going to install this? You have to present a bit of a problem statement. And it's really simple in this case. Cell signals don't travel into buildings very well. They don't travel through brick walls, through ceilings, through glass windows very well. So the moment that a customer steps into their building, their experience is worse than it was when they were on the sidewalk. Their cell phone connectivity is worse than it was. The signal in a lot of cases can just drop as soon as you walk through a door. And it's, I have this great graphic where this is a bit of an oversimplification, but it's a restaurant floor plan, and it shows signal from the outside. Doesn't make it in very well. But once you install a Helium hotspot, signal everywhere. This is like we call this a mini cell tower for a reason. Like it plugs in and it works. So like these are the problems that you're solving by doing this. Customers can't load apps. They can't look up the menu when they scan the QR code. They certainly can't receive notifications or answer calls if they have poor signal. And eventually that's going to lead to bad reviews, lead to unhappy customers, shorter dwell times, less revenue for the business. Helium in its own small way helps solve all of that. Yeah. I'm not a very technical person. There are other technical folks back here. The question for the recording is, do calls go through this? I think the answer is yes. Yeah. For the stream, the suggestion is that restaurants with basement areas, anywhere with a basement area, is great for this, and that's 100% true. I think that's one of the reasons why this has caught on so well in New York City, with all of the basement restaurants and bars and venues they have there. So the next question is, are there any other questions? No, okay. What do you say to the business owner then? So these are just like some simple examples that I threw together. I don't say this verbatim, and I don't recommend that you have anything verbatim. You'll come off much more authentic if you're speaking off the cuff, and say less ums than you hear me saying. That's a good tip as well. But this is just a very simple pitch. So when you walk in and you're talking to the business owner, what do you do? Well, I help local businesses fix poor cell service inside their building using a small device that connects to their existing internet so that their customers get reliable mobile coverage from carriers like AT&T, T-Mobile, and others. Very simple, straightforward, essentially encompasses what this little device does. And I think mostly helps get the point across to the venue owner. Then you can get into why this is good for their business. They're going to have better cell phone coverage for both their customers and their staff, like we just talked about. This is tailored for my approach. So I say no upfront cost and a clear, simple agreement. Structure it however you want to with your host. I'm not going to give you advice on that. I offer no upfront cost when I provide the hotspot. That's part of the value that I provide. and no exchanges to their point of sale services or existing Wi-Fi. In a lot of cases, I will use whatever internet connection the restaurant has for their POS. Somebody earlier had asked about bandwidth usage. I have not had one complaint from a restaurant that uses a point of sale system along with the Helium mobile hotspot. Even with places that have been concerned about the usage, like their credit cards run slow sometimes, I've had no issues since plugging in a Helium hotspot. Yes.
So you approach them and they might say, "Who are you, magical elf? Why do you want to help me? What's in it for you?"
What's in it for me? Yeah. Well, first, let me the last piece here, framing the benefits for the host. I offer flat monthly payments as a percentage of earnings. Figure out what works for you. Flat monthly payments don't work for a lot of people, and rightfully so. I talk about a flat monthly payment, but I actually offer a percentage. And figure out what you need to do for your small business. I know there are other people out there who offer just a backup internet connection as the payment. And that model seems to work really well. And honestly, I've done that in a few cases where the venue might have poor internet, the venue might have no internet, but it's a good high foot traffic area, and you want Helium coverage there, so you bring in your own internet connection. You're not always going to have access to it in a venue. There was a question back here.
Thank you so much. Can you walk us through a scenario or two where you offer the flat fee, and how do you predict or model how much revenue and what the cost would be for you? Can you walk us through a scenario of flat fee for what you offer?
So I do a lot of location research, and I mostly do that via the Helium World website. Joey, I don't think we really walked into some of the tooltip features available on Helium World, but you can see the data usage for each hotspot that is on the network. So if you zoom into and it's represented on the map by a bar. So short yellow bar is a little bit of usage. A tall red bar is a whole lot of usage. So if you zoom in onto the red bar locations, you can figure out what locations, what business is actually there. So I aggregate personally in my own way. I aggregate a lot of that data, and so I know kind of what to expect before walking into a business and broaching the topic with the business owner. Because they're going to ask. They're going to ask how much am I going to get paid from this? I get into this later, but I didn't get into it here. Another version, the difficulty with my business is I cast a wide net, and I use whatever model I think is going to work with this particular business. I do backup internet, I do percentage-based. I also work with nonprofits, and I have a community goodwill kind of effort where they get the service of increased cell connectivity, but instead of paying the business, I make a donation to a nonprofit in their name. And that model seems to be working really, really well for me. It helps build community around that too. Sorry, yeah. Did I not answer your question?
Can you walk us through a recent scenario?
A recent scenario of maybe locking down a business. Actually, we're gonna. I don't really I do my best to avoid exact dollar figures and give a range. I find a range to be the most. Yeah. That's the tough part, and that depends on the venue. So I've learned that in my hometown, in my downtown area, a restaurant can earn the equivalent in HNT of about $150 a month, right? And that's not uniform because every venue is unique. I have a banquet hall event space that has multiple stories, but they're not busy 7 days a week. They're busy 2 days a week. So they get more people, but that venue, even though it's larger, also earns about $150 a month. So it really depends on this is why the location research is so important for me, and all of the data that is available on Helium World, because you can look ahead of time and get a strong sense of what the venue is going to earn. I really recommend keeping it a range. You don't want to set expectations high and then miss them. And before I move on, one other piece I'm very clear about upfront with my hosts is that the first month is not going to be reflective of following months, because in the first month, maybe you're installing mid-month, takes another week for the carriers to select it, and you're finally getting offload, and there's only a week left in the month. So just be very upfront with your host. Month 1, earnings might be low. Month 2 and on, earnings should be pretty uniform based on your foot traffic and perhaps seasonality of your business as well.
Last question, and I think we should move just
Okay,
to be on
yeah.
schedule.
I do have a couple more slides.
Okay,
So let's.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think your charitable thing, we're using that a lot. I'm on several boards of athletic associations, and when people see that it can be donated to their local schools or their universities, and they're not having to come out of pocket, that's really great interest to them, because they're getting hit all the time for donations or for contributions. And if you could show them a third-party way of ginning up a couple $1,000s a year, which they could give to the schools or their charities, then that's found money for them.
Mm-hmm.
So we found that to be a huge, huge winning angle, is to say, fine, we'll give it back to your local school, and you'll get 2 signs at the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And, at the end of the day, they don't even care what it generates, because now they told the school this is what they do. The school doesn't need to call on them. They're getting something out of it, and it's taken care of, and it's turnkey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't know if everybody could hear him, but it was essentially a strong second for the community good approach and making a donation to a nonprofit instead of paying a host business directly.
Focus on what it is, how it works, what it should make him. It's all found money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all going to that one cause, and then whatever they end up getting is something better than what he had before, because it's not coming out of his pocket.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's all new money to them. That's a very good point to bring up with the host. Okay, turning chambers of commerce or business associations into a warm room for pitches, or getting a warmer reception, so it's not a strictly cold pitch. I'm going to run through this pretty quick. Your mindset as you go in, the chamber's your distribution channel. And when I say you're going in, I'm talking specifically at like a networking event, a chamber of commerce, coffee connection type event, or a lunch meetup, whatever, or after hours event, whatever your chamber does, or your business association that you're approaching does. A holiday party, whatever it might be. That's the type of event that I have in mind here that I like to go to. A lot of chambers will have these on a monthly basis, the coffee type connections on a monthly basis. Really great for networking one-on-one. A lot of them will then give you like a 30-second or a minute to talk to the whole group, and we'll get into the one-liner pitch in a second. We went through the short pitch, but we'll get into even shorter. Their member businesses are your customers. Their member businesses are the ones you're trying to reach. They are your distribution channel, meaning you're using them for their membership list. You're using them for the events they put on. You're using them for email blasts, whatever it might be. Those are some of the best touch points that I've found. Some of them have podcasts, and you can be a guest on a podcast that will live in perpetuity. So you have a pitch that renews itself every time somebody new listens to it. Those are some of the best touch points that I've found working with chambers of commerce and business associations. I'm sure there are others. But what to do? As you're talking to somebody one-on-one, start with questions. We talked about the problem statement earlier, so we want to obviously keep our questions in that vein. So start light. How's cell service in your venue? And listen for their pain before you start getting into the direct sales pitch. Because you have, or you will in a minute, have your one-liner that you can use with them and turn them from just this cold person who had no idea what this service was into a warm lead. And then, give them their one-liner and ask them for permission. Don't just dive into your pitch, but people like to be asked. They don't like to be told, they like to be asked. So ask them for permission to ask them, do they want to hear how we fix their issue with no cost or a few minutes of time, et cetera, et cetera. Anybody, do you have a different approach that you use with?
I think, I think you're on the right vein. I think we use existing owners and existing people. So if we're setting up with the High School Athletic Association, and I'll just bring up the chamber. So the chamber in our hometown, we just picked up 20 some locations because the chambers are kind of an older model and people are struggling with whether or not they should spend money to renew their membership. So the chambers proposed it this way: you get a free chamber membership and the chambers cut into the revenue chain. And so essentially now your chamber membership is free of charge if you install the Helium hotspot. And so businesses will look at that and say, oh, I like the chamber, I use the chamber, now my chamber membership is free and my luncheons are free. So yeah, come over here and show me what this is and do it with me. And look, nobody wants to be the first 5, but everyone wants to be the next 50. So you create a little bit of an urgency, but we use the owners to really talk to other existing businesses or the associations or the charitable things, because we just went into a bunch of YMCAs, and the YMCAs are using it to fund their summer day camps. So area kids that don't have the money to go to summer camp, or they're using their Helium hotspots to pay for those summer camp. So who doesn't want to be a part of that? And you're just trying to find ways that revenue's needed, but no one's writing a check for it, so we're finding revenue to cover the need. And when you do that, I'll be honest, they don't even ask questions, they just do it. It just happens.
I just request we complete the slides, but we have some time right after the presentation. After Jay, we have Sam, really, just last few slides, and then we'll open the room for more questions from the audience and find the team.
Sounds good. We can skip the interactive part of this, but this is a task I suggest that you all take. So pick your target business, whatever it might be, restaurant, gym, you know the types. I'm sure you have a business in mind, and use that template right there. I help gyms fix poor cell service by installing a small device on their existing network, so their members have better service while they're working out. We were going to share it back and forth, but let's move on because we've had a lot of back and forth this way. So to recap, what not to lead with. I don't lead with token price or APR or passive income. In fact, I typically don't even get into crypto with my hosts at all. The HNT token almost never comes up. I do have hosts that I pay crypto, but most of them are USD. What to lead with? Customer experience and reliability. We handle the tech so you don't have to. I talked about this earlier, like a bar owner isn't probably the most tech savvy person in the world, so proactively address that issue. But at the same time, let me install this small box and we're going to improve your customer's experience every time they visit your venue. So that's your next steps. Pick a business group, pick a chamber, pick a business association near you. They'll typically also give you, there's typically a fee to join a chamber, but they'll typically give you like a trial membership too. So you can get in for 30 days. Go to this coffee event and get a sense for it before you decide to join a chamber. Maybe you pick the chamber the one town over that isn't ideal for this. Maybe all of their members are industrial, and you find that out by going to their coffee connection. You go to the chamber in the next town over from that one, and lo and behold, they're all the commercial type of customers that you need. So pick one and one or two and try to get in. Try to go to their events as soon as you can. finalize your pitch and bring a one pager. I forgot to bring them. I have postcards and flyers that I bring with me. In fact, when I get back home, when I land back home in Detroit, my plan is to take all of the postcards I have with me and hit every place of business inside the airport before I leave the airport when I get home. I suggest you do the same. But I have a 6x11 postcard, 8.5 by 11 flyer that I personalize based on the types of places I'm going. It's always great to have a leave behind. I wouldn't necessarily go in with the mindset that you're going to close. Hopefully you can close your venue, but you're not always going to close the venue that day. So have a leave behind, something, even if it's very simple, have something that you can leave with them that they might see on their desk later and be like, oh yeah, I should go to that website and check it out more. So develop your one pager. A lot of us in this community already have these, and I'm sure I see people in this room who I know have them and would probably be willing to share them with you to base yours off of. Also visit some websites of builders in the room to get a sense of messaging and the types of graphics that you might want to put on your postcard. I don't use Helium graphics myself. Do whatever you need to. You do whatever you want to. I brand myself as Proof Wireless, and that's how I approach businesses. But it's entirely up to you. And finally, commit to 3 real conversations with Chamber of Commerce members beyond the events over the next 30 days. So go to an event, work out your pitch, talk to as many people as you can. It's kind of like speed dating a little bit. But then commit to real conversations with people you met at that event. So follow up with them. Go to meet with them in person, because you're probably not going to close them in the 60 seconds that you talk to them at the chamber event. But if you set up a follow-up sales call and go to visit them in person, you can probably close them in 10 minutes, right? Because they're already familiar with it. It's not cold call anymore. Now it's slightly warmer. They know the product. They know what it is. They know who you are at this point. Your face is familiar. You're not a stranger. And they're going to be just that much more receptive because you've already talked to them once, because you're not a stranger, because they know the product, or at least have a vague sense of what the service is. Yeah, that's about all I have. I'm getting the pull signal. I'm going to be around. If anybody has any more questions, happy to talk. I'm always happy to talk about this. By the way, I'm also JM from the Mobile Working Group. So every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific. Join us on Twitter, the Helium Twitter. We have similar. We end all of our calls with a similar conversation. We call it the Deployer Fireside Chat. It's my favorite part, mostly because I don't do much of the talking, but it's my favorite part of the working group call every week because I learn something new every week. It's one of our other members, Keith, who leads that portion of the call and interacts with people like Mario or Joey or Mark or Boris and other folks from the Nova team, and just asking builder questions, a lot like what we've talked about today. So I recommend it, even if you can't join us live. I know that time doesn't work for everybody. It's on Twitter, so it's recorded. Maybe you don't have to listen to all of our governance chat and get into the weeds, but zoom in on that final 10 minutes of the call every week, and you'll get great tips. You'll get as many or more good tips than you've received here today. So I'll leave you all with that suggestion. Thank you very much.
Hey everybody, I'm Sam. I promise I'll be about 1.5 minutes here, but I just want to thank all of our great speakers, specifically Jeremy for coming out, Joey for showing us those highlights, Mario, that was all awesome, and it's amazing what a raffle giveaway can do for the Q&A section of showing slides. But just to close things here, we were really happy to do this first one here in San Francisco for the boot camps, and just want to let you know that we're looking to expand early next year. If you have any suggestions about the type of content you'd want to see, where you think it should be, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask. Because what we really want to do is build the gold standard of deployer boot camps. We feel that we have the best community in all of whatever you want to call it, deep in, crypto, community-built wireless. And I think with the new products that we have that Joey showed, deployers that we have like Jeremy, like we're well suited to take this thing to the next level and really start to grow our pipeline. And I think with this program, we really want to accomplish, at least I do, 3 separate goals. One is let's get every person off zero. How do we grow the universe of net new deployers? Second, how do we create more Jeremys? He's a cool guy. We want to have more people that deploy 10, 20, 30 hotspots. What are the things that you need to know to be able to do that? And third, I think we mentioned it, part of the reason that Helium Mobile, the carrier, can do such interesting things like offer a free plan is by having the saturation of coverage that can offload and reduce the cost structure. And we really want to push the limits. What if we could cover an entire city with Helium coverage and see what we can pass on to our customers? So we really want to push the limit on what's possible there. So just quickly, what we're really envisioning from a high level is 3 things. Probably a multi-day event that goes over the foundation, all the things you need to know about the Helium network, not just what you heard today, but you know, what are some of the things you need to do to scale your operation, right? From indoor hotspots, outdoor hotspots, Helium Plus, what does it take to handle some of the accounting? What does it take to use all the tools, approaching hosts, and more importantly, execution. Going out and actually in teams, going out in the wild and deploying hotspots, actually handling those rejections, seeing what we can do in terms of deploying around the city. And then lastly, reflecting, coming back, having the team share their experiences, having some fun, interesting awards, reflection, and most importantly, networking and learning from each other. So with that, everyone can get back to networking, go back to the bar, grab a drink. Thank you so much for coming, all of you. Oh, wait, one more thing. There's one more thing, like Steve Jobs. If you go on this QR code, 40% off hotspots with the code SFBuilder. This will take you to the indoor hotspot page. So get those phones out. Let's go through some inventory. Unless you win the raffle, then you don't need that at all. Thanks, guys.